In honor of Women's History Month, we're proud to share this video interview with Mary Alice McCarthy, Senior Director of the Center on Education and Labor at New America. Previously, she worked at both the U.S. Departments of Education and Labor. She led a variety of technical assistance initiatives in the areas of career pathways, credentialing, and competency-based education. She co-founded the Career Pathways Interagency Working Group with staff from the U.S. Departments of Education, Health and Human Services, and Labor, which continues to coordinate federal investments in relation to career pathways. She has a PhD in political science from the University of North Carolina. Mary Alice, please tell me about your work as the founder and senior director of the Center on Education and Labor.
Thank you, Heather. The Center on Education and Labor at New America is dedicated to creating a more equitable and inclusive economy through a combination of education and labor policies that enable people to complete the education and training they need to secure good jobs. That is, jobs that pay a family-sustaining wage, provide benefits like health insurance and paid leave, and include worker protections for health and safety and from discrimination. We believe that a high-quality education is absolutely critical for an individual to be able to fully participate and thrive in our 21st century economy. At the same time, though, we know that education on its own cannot ensure economic security in the face of systemic inequities in the labor market. That is why we want to focus on providing people affordable access to effective education and training, while also implementing policies that bolster worker power, dismantle racial and gender equity gap in pay and benefits, and create more high-quality jobs. To achieve that goal, we engage in a variety of research, policy advocacy, and strategic communications activities to help raise awareness among policymakers and the broader public on the need for critical reforms to our education and workforce development systems, and to the policies regulating employment and worker protections. We work with community colleges and high schools on career preparation strategies, including youth apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, and other forms of high-quality workforce education that lead to good jobs. And we also conduct research on the needs of vulnerable workers, gig workers, and care workers, with the goal of identifying policies that can shore up both the quality of jobs and the wages and benefits that these workers have access to. So in short, the Center on Education and Labor is an effort to bring together two policy streams that we think are both critical to ensuring an inclusive economy, and that is access to high quality education and access to good family sustaining jobs with full benefits and protections.
What has been your greatest achievement in your career thus far? What helped you to succeed?
Well, thank you for that question. I guess for me, I divide my career into sort of two different phases. I've had a long career. I've been around for a while. So in the first part of my career, I earned a PhD in political science and comparative politics, and I studied labor movements in Latin America and their role in transitions to democracy in the region, particularly in the Southern Cone. And then for about a decade, I worked in international development, also in Latin America and Central America, working with communities around education and training policies, in fact. So that was sort of the first half of my career. So I'll put that to the side. And then I did a mid-career transition towards in around 2007. After having worked internationally for a while, I really wanted to spend some time focusing on domestic policy, because I was increasingly concerned by rising inequality in the United States and also what was happening to our political system and just our society in general. So I had the incredibly good fortune of landing a job at the U.S. Department of Labor in the summer of 2009, right at the very beginning of the Obama administration. And I spent a few years there at the Employment and Training Administration before moving over to the Department of Education for a couple of years and then landing here at New America. So that's the second half of my career. And what I would say in terms of my greatest achievement in this part of my career has certainly been establishing the Center on Education and Labor here at New America. It's been incredibly gratifying and fulfilling when I founded the center in 2015, it was just me. But today, in 2022, the center has a staff of 10 full-time researchers and analysts. And we have a broad portfolio of work that spans, again, from community colleges to apprenticeship to labor and employment policies and the needs of gig workers and care workers. So it's a really exciting place to be. We have over the years seen our policy recommendations find their way into federal investments in community colleges, as well as proposed legislation around our national apprenticeship system. We have seen some of our policy recommendations reflected in state policies around community colleges and their offerings. And just recently, just yesterday, one of our team members testified before the Maryland House of Delegates, sharing some of her research on strategies for improving the wages and working conditions of long-term care workers. So it's really exciting when the things that you're passionate about and you're doing research on, you're able to sort of translate them into policy and actually see them sort of be discussed by policymakers and reflected in legislation and policy guidance. So that has been very, very rewarding. In terms of what contributed to my success, I would say I just had tremendous mentors and supporters here at New America. Our CEO and President Anne-Marie Slaughter and my boss, Kevin Carey, have been incredibly supportive. It was actually Kevin's idea to create the center. He's been tremendously supportive. I've had the great fortune of hiring really wonderful people. So the staff of the center is just an incredible group of policy experts and really committed and passionate about their work. And really lucky. I've also had the tremendously good fortune, though, of being part of a broader policy community that includes wonderful experts who I have modeled my own center after, including Carl Van Horn and the Heldrick Center for Workforce Development and Maria Heidkamp. Carl and Maria have both just been wonderful partners, and we published a number of pieces together, and just I know being able to talk with folks at the Heldrick Center has made me better at doing my job. And you can't really do this work well without a lot of good partners. None of this work happens in isolation, certainly not policy change. So those partnerships have been critically important as well.
What advice would you give to the next generation of women leaders?
My advice is pretty straightforward. I would say the three most important thing that women that I always tell women who work with me here at the center and just in other parts of our life, there are three things. First of all, speak up. Don't be in the background. You need to share your opinions. You need to share your thoughts. You need to get them out there. Sometimes I think as young women, sometimes can be socialized a little bit into being behind the scenes, and it's very difficult to create change if you're 100% behind the scenes. So speak up, find your voice. And the next thing I say is write things down, publish, write. I feel like probably for my own work, what has been the most important in terms of my ability to sort of get a seat at the table has been people reading things that I've written and then inviting me into the conversation. So writing is a very wonderful way of sort of sharing your views in a thoughtful way without being interrupted. I just can't encourage young women enough to put their thoughts in writing and get that writing out into the public arena.
Which women, either living or deceased, inspire you the most?
Well, there's no lack of women who inspire me, but I will name a few historic figures and then some living figures, some wonderful women who are inspiring me every day. But I can't think about my work and everything that we do here at the Center on Education and Labor without thinking about Frances Perkins and Ida B. Wells. Frances Perkins, of course, was the first female cabinet member and Secretary of Labor, and she was incredible in the 1930s during the Roosevelt administration. And not only did Frances Perkins sort of hold her own in a cabinet, in an all-male cabinet in the Roosevelt administration, but she actually ushered in some of the most important and just monumental social legislation of our time that is still with us today, from the Wagner Act to the Social Security Act. So just an incredible public servant who really has had a long-lasting and positive impact on American politics and society. And then Ida B. Wells, who is a fierce journalist, investigative journalist, who who wrote about and documented and wrote about lynchings of Black Americans and other sort of extrajudicial violence against Black Americans that was used to terrorize them both in the South and other parts of the country. And again, at great risk to herself. So these two women have always been for me two sources of just tremendous inspiration of what women can do and how speaking up really matters, even when it can be quite dangerous. And then today, I think it's one of the things I'm most excited about when I look out at the sort of landscape today of women leaders is how many women leaders we have in the labor movement. If you look at our major unions today, you will see a lot of women leading them, from Liz Schuler at the AFL-CIO to Mary Kay Henry at SEIU, to Sarah Nelson at the Flight Attendants Union. These are big, important unions, and these women are leading them at a time when there is palpable sort of enthusiasm and excitement, particularly among young people, for labor unions and for union organizing. And so seeing that sort of rejuvenation and renewal of the labor movement and seeing women in charge of that is really gratifying and exciting. And I don't think those things are a coincidence. I think these things go together. I'd also say too, so I think some of the most exciting and innovative things happening around labor organizing today are also coming from women leaders, whether it's Ai-jen Poo of the National Domestic Workers Alliance or Sarah Horowitz of the Freelancers Alliance. We're really seeing women at the forefront of new ways of thinking about organizing, new ways of thinking about unions, new ways of thinking about worker power. And I think that that's been an incredibly good thing for the country. And I'm excited to see where these women leaders take the labor movement.
Finally, Mary Alice, what can people do to celebrate Women's History Month?
Well, I think I would say the most important thing about celebrating Women's History Month this year is to not take anything for granted. We need to hold up our women leaders, both historic ones and again, the women leaders who are leading us today and doing incredible things. But I think most importantly, what I would say to people is that, women have accomplished, have made great strides over the last 100 years, whether it's in the workplace or in the political arena. That is certainly the case. But unfortunately, I think one of the lessons of the last few years is history doesn't always move forward in one direction, and that it can move backwards. And today we are seeing sort of an attack on some of the most important rights that women have secured for themselves, particularly reproductive rights, but also in other arenas that are once again under attack. So I think the best way to celebrate Women's History Month is to honor the women who came before us and not be complacent about the future, and understand that to continue advancing and creating opportunities for women and ensuring that they have that we have our proper role in society. We can't take anything for granted, and we will need to keep fighting.
Thanks for watching this interview with Mary Alice McCarthy. Be sure to watch our other video interviews celebrating Women's History Month.